Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. I'm getting a lot of extra little sound here, and hopefully it will stop very shortly. Oh, my goodness. Good morning from, well, I won't call it sunny Finland right now. It's quite dark out at night. I'm happy to see the few of you who are here having made this, and I'll welcome you in just a moment. Yeah, I love some of these charts. They really show our destiny, and they give a hint as to what we may find on the other planets, although they'll have their own hierarchies. Isn't that amazing? You know, their own group of beings, perhaps I think human beings, and their own directors and so forth. But the 7 rays and the 3 above, they apply to the entire solar system. Well, as you know, passionate glamour is careening around the halls of deliberation. I suppose the United Kingdom will be up next at some point, but meanwhile, it's a second ray aggregation of nations. And the United States is the second ray aggregation of states. Important decisions are being made there today regarding whether partisanship, the narrow point of view, and the lack of consideration of the welfare of the whole will prevail. Excuse me. Or whether some sense of decency and fairness will eke by somehow. It's a very knife blade kind of decision, and it's just amazing what people will do to win for their cause, even though the cause is very partial and lacking in completeness. Of course, the human lower ego is the same way. It's a bit like my country, right or wrong, you know. It's my party, right or wrong. It's my lower ego, right or wrong. So we'll be dealing again with this issue of a very narrow partisanship. Adherence to it is a 6th ray thing, I think, and refusal to see the wider picture and the general welfare. Basically, it comes down to human selfishness, and human selfishness is based upon the misidentification. I mean, if we all identified as souls and we all found ourselves related, we would not act the way we do. But we're very partial in our estimation of what we are, and quite blind, really. And so we fight like mad for something which, from a higher perspective, we would not endorse in the same way. Something happened. How, Vera? Yeah. you were not sent a reminder. See, Michael will have to look into that with Joe, and it says a number of people did not receive reminders about this today. Well, I usually put it somewhere, but also there's usually something that comes from constant contact that tells you it's coming. So I apologize, Vera, for the whatever oversight our system has provided. But okay, let's see if the intuition helps to gather people. I can't understand why I'm getting such a I'm getting such a I'm hoping, otherwise we're going to have that sound, and I don't like that sound. I'm sure you hear it too. It's kind of a bell-like sound, and it's very intrusive. But I do want to.
I'm not hearing the sound on my end, Michael.
Oh, then it must be going on in my brain, you know. The bells are ringing, okay? I'm glad, Michael, that maybe it's not carried on. But I would just want to say good morning here to Anna and to Catherine and to Karen, of course, probably for some of you, much different time of the day. And hi, Margot and Mariana and Martha and Rebecca and Tiu, Vera and Veronica. And here on the staff side, we are having Michael and Tuya helping us along on that side. Let's just align for a moment. And every day, you know, that we do these programs, we hope for a little more light on the truth and the ability to come a little closer to the revelation, which, as Master DK says, is always somehow present, even though we do not detect it. So we'll have to make sure that somehow we must have dropped the ball here on announcing this, but on Fridays, there is either the glamour presentation in the morning or the evening, and generally a cosmic fire presentation of some kind. And we are making our way through that and discovering that all souls are identical with the Oversoul. You know who wrote a wonderful essay on the Oversoul was Ralph Waldo Emerson. He was a clergyman in Boston, I guess, and they used to call him the Boston Brahmin, because somehow he seemed to be drawing upon the Eastern traditions as he explained how he saw the truth. And I remember long ago, I was, long time ago, I was traveling on one of those elevated trains in the city of Chicago, and I was reading the Oversoul, and I was very impressed by what he was exclaiming, writing, and now we have to make it a reality for ourselves, which we will attempt to do. Now, last time, in the lead up to program 141, I just want to read this. It basically says, we're talking about intuition, right? Okay. So 4 types of people are subject to revelation through the awakening of the intuition. And the first group, those on the line of the world's saviors. You know, they are saviors, teachers, and the divine psychologists. These touch and sense the divine plan and are pledged to service and to work for the salvation of humanity. You know, and given the state of human ignorance, we certainly do manage to, as a race, to get ourselves into a situation where something like salvation is needed. Excuse me, just a little drink of water. They are found expressing different and varying degrees of realization, stretching all the way from the man who seeks to reveal divinity in his own life and his immediate small circle, through the medium of the changes and effects wrought in his personal life, because, you know, every one of us, if we want to express these high energies, certainly have to change from our usual personality expression. So it just stretches all the way from such a human being to those great intuitives and world saviors, such as the Christ. We remember that Master DK, pretty much on the wisdom line, considered himself, he said, one of the humblest, excuse me, one of the humblest of the friends of the Christ. And he said, interestingly enough, this category of server, friends of the Christ, are found on the wisdom line, not on the love line so much. So there's something there to be considered. Okay. The former, the smaller group worker, is motivated, in all probability, by some one intuitive crisis which entirely remade him and gave him a new sense of values. So often, you know, you tell the quality of the human being by the sense of values which they express. What a human being wants, that tells you who he is. Okay, it gave him a new sense of values. The latter, the greater beings, can at will rise into the world of intuitive perception and values, and there ascertain the will of God and a wide vision of the plan. Well, I don't think we find ourselves there yet, but as always, we're on our way. Such great representatives of deity have the freedom of the holy city, Shambhala, and of the New Jerusalem, the hierarchy. They are thus unique in their contacts, and there have been relatively few of them as yet. Now we know that the Christ was one of them, and a great one, and maybe the highest one that Earth humanity has produced so far. Now, okay, what's another group that responds subject to revelation through intuition? Okay, and this is number 2, those who are on the line of the prophets. We think of Isaiah, Jeremiah, Amos. So often they didn't have really happy things to say about the condition of things. And it was Amos, I think, who warned us that we would, were we not careful, die in a polluted land. Oof. And when you look at the condition of things now, well, you do see how it could happen. These prophets touch the plan at high intuitive moments and know what the immediate future holds. Okay, so he's not referring to the Hebrew prophets here. I do not refer here to the Hebrew prophets, so familiar in the West, but to all who see clearly what should be done to lead humanity out of darkness into light, beginning with the situation as it is and looking forward into a future of divine consummation. So he's kind of changing the meaning of prophet, and he's not only talking about those more exalted beings who are in our mind when we read the Old Testament. In other words, there is the prophet line. It doesn't seem like they're quite as astute as the great intuitives that he mentioned in the first section. Okay, but they have a clear picture in their minds of what is possible to accomplish and the power to point it out to people of their time. I wonder, if someone like Doug Hammarskjöld was one of these. Eleanor Roosevelt, even, she had Sagittarius on the ascendant. She was a Libra, seeing ahead into the possibilities. Okay, and then of course here he gives a range as usual. They necessarily range all the way from those who have a relatively clear vision of the cosmic picture and objectives to those who simply see the next step ahead for the race or the nation. Now, here he goes. Isaiah and Ezekiel, by the way, who probably saw the wheel of the monad, really. Ezekiel saw the wheel way in the middle of the air, as the song goes. Isaiah and Ezekiel are the only 2 of the Hebrew prophets who had true prophetic and cosmic vision. The others were small but intelligent men who, from analysis and deduction, assessed the immediate future and indicated immediate possibilities. They had no direct revealing intuition. In the New Testament, let's see, John, the beloved disciple, was privileged to gain a cosmic picture and a true prophetic vision which he embodied in the apocalypse. But he is the only one who so achieved, and he achieved because he loved so deeply, so wisely, and so intuitively and inclusively. His intuition was evoked through the depth and intensity of his love as it was in his master, and here we're talking about the Christ. Well, you know, and again, John saw some things in the book of Revelation, I guess, which was, the Tibetan tells us, actually dictated by the one who became the Master Hilarion. You saw some things which bear on our time, and again, are not of the most pleasant nature. Okay, as it was in his master, the Christ, yeah. I didn't see that, but it just seemed like it must be the case. Now here is a, okay, so these are the prophets. They are not the great and natural intuitives like the Christ, maybe the Buddha, we don't know who else he would include, but they have the possibility, some of them, of a cosmic vision, and others are more, what can we say, analytical, intelligent, and for that reason, see ahead a little bit. Okay, here we have the true priests. That's the next group. Now remember, we're talking about those who receive intuitive revelation, who are inclined to see intuitive revelation. They are priests by spiritual calling and not by choice. It's just built into them, right? It is the misunderstanding of the province of the duties of a priest, which has led all the churches in the East and in the West to their disastrous authoritarian position. This is what he thinks of it. And we know how the priest in the old days was always the intermediary between man and God, until Luther put that all aside and said, let man confront God directly. The priest is not needed. The love of God and the true spiritual incentive, which recognizes God immanent, within, in all nature, and peculiarly expressing that divinity in man, is lacking in the bulk of the priesthood of all the world religions. Well, that's quite an indictment, isn't it? Something so necessary. The recognition of God immanent, the love of God in all nature and in man, is lacking in the bulk of the priesthood, in all the world religions. Love is not the guide, the indicator and the interpreter. Hence, the dogmatism of the theologian is ridiculous, and profound assurances of correct interpretation, and his oft-times cruelty, when you simply impose your own way upon another, regardless of what that other may really need. This is an example of what cruelty is. So it has degenerated. The true love of the priest for his parishioners has not developed as it should have done. But the, is oftentimes cruelty cloaked by his claim of right principles and good intentions. But I remember, things come back to me. I saw a movie a long time ago about the 30 Years' War. It was a horrible thing in Europe, and the Catholics and the Protestants were fighting. There was just unbelievable cruelty. And they were going to, this priest, Catholic, I believe, was going to burn somebody to purify them, and threw them on the, he was, this man, probably a Protestant, was, or was it a woman, on the fire, horrible, excruciating death. But those who surrounded the blaze saw right through it, what was happening, and how fallacious the whole process had become. And he grabbed hold of the priest and he threw him also into the fire as a gesture of fairness and reciprocity, and somehow seeing this dogmatic, almost hateful, very cruel attitude in the priest. It was an impressive moment for me, and 30 Years' War, it was unbelievable in the cruelty, because it was, of course, a religious war which would determine whether Catholicism would hold its preeminent place or whether Protestantism would rise into power. So the true priest exists and is found in all religions. I guess we sometimes think, that when we hear that word priest, that it is Catholic, but he's saying something different. He is the friend and the brother of all, and because he loves deeply, wisdom is his. And if he is of a mental type and training, his intuition is awakened, and revelation is his reward. So the love is revealing wisdom. We know that on the Buddhic plane, love, wisdom is found, and the Buddhi essentially means wisdom, but is so deeply connected as well with love. So ponder on this. The true priest is rare and is not found only in the so-called holy orders. Oh, this takes me back, And I remember even 50 years ago, when I was still interested in occultism, or should we say maybe beginning my very serious interest in occultism, there were people going around in brown robes in the holy order of Man's, something of that nature. And they were cruel and compulsive and left no room for any other point of view. They were definitely forceful and sought to impress you. Now, that reminds me of the War of 1812, where the Americans were impressed into the British service. The idea was, well, look, you're really still Brits, you're not really Americans, and therefore you owe your service on the high seas to the British Navy and not to anything we would call an American Navy. So these people in their brown robes, of course, accounting for all the differences among personalities, but there was a tendency to see that only in this way could any kind of spiritual development be had. Okay, so far we have three types that undergo intuitive revelation. They are the true priests, and I might say here, through the agency of great love. And get that correct. And the true priest is not necessarily known by some kind of religious name. And we have the prophets, those who are under the line of the prophets, and then up here we have the greatest of all intuitives, the Christ. Yeah, the world's saviors. All right, now, he's telling us something about the kind of life we have to live if we're going to really have the true awakening of the intuition and not just a kind of psychism in which we indulge, in which we overestimate. And finally, he inserts the word practical. The practical mystics and occultists, I think he's probably not going off to some cave and finding someone who's isolating himself from all contact with the service of men and women. But what's interesting is that Master Moria talks sometimes about the hermit in the cave and how his highly developed consciousness is really taking him out of the cave, even though his body might remain there, and that he mixes into the affairs of many ordinary people in the world simply because he has that power to go forth and identify. Anyway, the practical mystics or occultists, not those who are just simply concerned with their own development. These, by virtue of a disciplined life, an ardent aspiration, and a trained intellect, have succeeded in evoking the intuition and are therefore personally in touch with the true source of divine wisdom. Well, it seems to take all these qualities, doesn't it? Disciplined life for the physical nature, ardent aspiration for the astral nature, and a trained intellect. And I suppose we can ask, how many of us are characterized by these characteristics? This, let's see. it is their function to interpret, that is the divine wisdom, and to formulate into temporary systems of knowledge. No one knows so well, perhaps, as the Tibetan about the temporary nature of knowledge. There are some people who say the last revelation has been given with this teaching. When that kind of thing is said, you know that there is very great illusion running through that teaching. Anyway, of these mystics or occultists, he says, well, I want to say, here we go, temporary systems of knowledge. I want to emphasize that, the temporary nature. Excuse me. There are many such of these people working patiently today in the world, unrecognized and unsought by the unthinking. Notice those three uns in a row. This is one of the way Master DK teaches. Their need today is to assemble themselves in this hour of the world need, and so let their voice be clearly heard. And let's just say that the new group of world servers is a partial example of this, and the people who are seeking to populate and to open and develop the new esoteric schools of meditation, they are assembling, and those who are building the bridging schools, they are assembling. Okay, so let the voice be heard. These people are resolving the sense of duality into a known unity. Let's just say the many and the one. And their preoccupation with reality and their deep love of humanity have released the intuition. Now, it's almost like DK is seems to be something about my computer at the moment. Speaking of himself. And there's the seams with, there we go. When this release of the intuition has taken place, no barriers are felt, and true knowledge as a result of revealed wisdom is the gift which such people have to give to their race and time. Okay. Well, you know, where are we? And are we some mixture of this? Let's just see. These are the four groups who are exchanging illusion for the intuition. Sounds like a pretty good trade, does it not? This is the initial resolution of the pairs of opposites. Notice the word initial, for there is no such resolution without the aid of the intellect, because the intellect, through analysis, discrimination, and right reasoning, indicates what should be done. Okay, so we have reviewed intuitive revelation in 4 groups of people, of which we can take note. We're on page, is it 139? Or is it much? Yep, we're beginning page 139. So let me take this down for our next process, which so far will be in about a week. As we approach the conference, of course, you know, things get a little different, and we just cannot somehow do the double duty of these programs and all that is required at the conference. Maybe some can manage that. And we're now talking about the 7th of February, and our page is 139. Good. Okay, friends, so that will be all the reading for today. Now, where are you? Are you intuitive? Does intuitive revelation come to you? I think we can eliminate that, you know, we're on the line of the Christ at his parallel, at least. We may be on the line, but we have not attained in that way. And are we on the line of the prophets? There are the oracles of the modern day, and they're real. And some people may feel themselves to be on that line. Or do we find ourselves perhaps as a true priest, a true brother, through kindness and love, revelation would come. And then the last possibility, the practical mystics or occultists, I would say, many of whom are gathered around such teachers as Master DK. Certainly he is training occultists, and he's helping mystics blend the Uranian line of that planet with the Neptunian line with which they are very familiar. Okay. Now, are there any thoughts or questions about this much of what we have been studying or should be studying? And we're about to begin a new section next time. So this one's about intuitive revelation. First of all, let's pause for a minute and say, ask ourselves, am I subject to intuitive revelation? Now, obviously, the real intuition is of the triad and beyond. and it's going to continue to develop. And normally, unless we were post-initiate of the fourth degree, our consciousness would not be in a sustained manner Buddhic, not yet. We're doing our best to develop the higher mind, the abstract mind, with the occasional flashes of the Buddhi. But maybe that door is open to you, and maybe you see the line by which you would enter along one of these four, or especially one of the three, 2, 3, 4. So, are there any? I see one. Okay. And Veronica uses the words geometrically intuitive. And I suppose that the various geometries are meant to reveal something about the constitution of man, its functioning, and the energies ambient in a certain situation. So I think it is a legitimate way of proceeding, revealing this square of personality and the triangle of spirit, and also of consciousness, and the five-pointed star of initiation, or the inverted star of retrogression, or the six-pointed star which places the higher and the lower triad together, and on even he mentions the seven-pointed star, and perhaps there is an 8 and a 9. I've seen the two squares used to create an 8-pointed star. And then there's the Platonic solids, each one of which has a whole lore surrounding it. So that is one way of operating. And remember, the second ray God, the second ray Lord, is called the Grand Geometrician. So, sometimes it's the love of geometry or access via geometry which reveals the second ray in one's makeup, and even more in a practical sense, I think the seventh ray can as well be revealed. Okay, geometrically intuitive. Are there any other thoughts or? Vera.
Yeah, it's sometimes I think occasionally on those rare moments, I think, oh yeah, there was some intuitive revelation, but it's quite difficult to hold on to it, to feed it, because then soon I find, well, I'm slipping back. So how do you keep on the line?
I don't. I'm with you on that, and given that we are not fourth degree initiates, we will slip back. Occasionally I reread what is found in the beginning, very beginning of the Glamour book about the true nature of intuition, so that my expectations are in line with reality. And I think you know what I mean here. It's just is it on page 4 or 3 or something like that. Let's see here. Yeah, this is, my view is not very, I think maybe that'll be a little better, but just to look at this one more time, because I find it to be so reminding in a way. And definition of the intuition, it begins that way. And, you know, I remind myself that intuition is the synthetic understanding, which is the prerogative of the soul. And it only becomes possible when the soul on its own level is reaching in two directions, towards the monad and towards the integrated, and perhaps, even if only temporarily, see, there he goes, confirming what we said, coordinated and at one personality. It is the indication of a deep subjective unification, which will find its consummation at the third degree. So it certainly is beginning then, and by the fourth it's quite perfected, and it gives us other qualities like universal love, like I think like illumination, understanding, all of this part of the intuition. So the cultivation of any of these qualities is going to bring us closer. Remember what it said about the true priest who through love accesses this, then the thinker, the occultist. The occultist is really found, well, sometimes those on the first ray are called the occultist, but it has to do with the Uranian mind, not the Neptunian mind, but the Uranian mind. And so there's a number of things to cultivate before we can hold steady in that realm. And I must say, the way the masters do. See, we're not going to have anything but a flash, it seems to me, at this point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But grateful for the flash, if it's the real thing. If it's the real thing. And keeps us from being bewildered in the world of glamour. Now, the next thing we're going to undertake is the difference there between, what does he say, the contrast between glamour and illumination. Something of the intuition will be discussed there. So we persist. That's all I can say.
Okay.
With the knowledge that, hey, it won't last forever. It's going to fall back.
Thank you.
Era says, thank you. Thank you, Vera. Okay, now,
Suzanne has written, I have found examples of revelation or confirmation often in the writing of poetry, which for me appears to arrive rather than to be contrived.
yes, there are the poets who contrive, and their work is never as living. You can almost tell it. And then there's something that comes into the non-contrivers. And I would say often, Suzanne, with you, that there is a certain Buddhic quality in the best of the poetry. It just gives you a totally different insight. And where did that come from? So, you know, one has to be discriminating, but so often it's a really fresh point of view that we are offered. I mean, we kind of go round and round in the world of mind with many thoughts that are familiar, just kind of a rotary motion, and then something breaks in and you see and feel things from quite a different point of view with the true poet, even after hundreds of years. Agreeing with you on that. And, you know, of course, different people have different lines. I know that one of my lines, let's say, has always been a musical line. It's difficult to maybe put what is sensed in music into words which can convey the whole thing, but it comes via certain phrases of music, and you're just arrested by them and know there's a tremendous revelation contained. For others, it might be the visual arts. There's always a way in. And I just want to say, and we'll emphasize at the upcoming conference, that the true artist is a meditator, and that the art of the future is an occult art and will require a skilled occult meditation. He seems to tell us that. Now, okay, Michael, what else?
Rebecca would like you to please expand on what you said about those being educated on the Uranian line and Neptunian line. What does this mean? With thanks.
Okay. There we go. I looked at this. Tuya has a better diagram of this egg, and it's this one rather than the other one. Notice that nothing is said in terms of design about the Uranian or Neptunian planetary schemes. In all the others, Anne, there's going to be some pretty distinctive geometry, which is somehow different in most cases, and the question is, why is it different? Now, sometimes it looks the same, but you have to look carefully at it, and you may see that there are subtle differences among a number of them. Now, Neptune is a second-ray monad. So we have some, be careful of the extra sounds that come through here. Neptune is the second-ray monad. Go to page 420 or 421 of Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1. And Uranus is a first-ray monad. That means that esoterically, they are on the first ray. And Uranus is also a highly mental planet. It's very synthetic in various ways. It seems even to capture something of the second ray, but its major use for humanity at this time is in the intuitive, technical Uranian mind. It educates the occult mind of the student, whereas I might say that Neptune educates the occult heart of the student. Neptune is very sensuous and tells us much through the sense of touch, and Uranus is utterly sharp and in a lightning flash reveals occult relations. So we live in a pretty much Neptunian solar system. It's got 200,000 million or 200 billion, I guess, another way, beings, most of them Davic, and I think finally, in a strange way, under the control of Neptune. We're learning the heart and we're learning identification. In the next solar system, Uranus will be the ultimate planetary ruler and is quite different in the kind of revelation it gives. It's more of the mind than of the spirit, I would say. We'll have to wait a while, but already some students of occultism are sharpening up what will eventually become the true and complete Uranian mind to be developed in the next solar system. So we can already foresee what kind of development it will be, even though Neptune is the major development for this particular solar system. I hope that gives a little bit anyway. Okay. Oops. Karen, did you want to say something? Karen Gritzka, are you there? Because if you wish to speak, I saw your hand up. You could. You are green, and that could help. Unless there's something wrong, you know, with the system. Yeah, and you know, I want to say again, Rebecca, that Neptune is pretty much a 2-4-6 planet involving astral plane, Buddhic plane, monadic plane, and cosmic astral plane. Uranus is pretty much a 1-3-5-7 planet involving the etheric level, the higher mind, the spiritual will and mind, or even the triadal mind, and the sea of fire on the logoic plane, and finally, it's said to be kind of a kind of permanent atom. Not entirely so, but indicates a permanent atom of the cosmic mental plane. Just the way, let's see if I can get there. Just the way Neptune represents a kind of permanent atom on the cosmic astral plane. So the permanent atom of the cosmic mental plane is not exactly Uranus, but it's akin to Uranus. He really doesn't explain more. then the permanent atom the same regarding Neptune and the cosmic astral plane. Whereas at our particular stage of development, Saturn is the permanent atom of the cosmic physical plane rather than just suggesting it, as in the case of Neptune and Uranus. So I think you see a strong mental component in Uranus. And among the inventors and the people who work with electricity and those who are always breaking down the old paradigm, you see a lot of Uranus. Uranus reveals the archetype. I think that's an important statement. Uranus reveals the archetype, and from that archetype comes the whole sense of purpose with regard to our, let's even just confine it to the cosmic physical plane. I'm a little dry and grateful for the water, which makes an immediate difference in where the voice pitches itself. Okay. Now, let's see, Michael, is there anything else there?
And Veronica.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I see what she's saying here. You can read it.
And Veronica writes, so Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn are the solar logos Antakarana?
Oh, okay. Well, as you know, the Antakarana in other systems is built between lower and higher centers. So let's just say that it seems at the moment, until DK clarifies the matter, which he has not yet really done, that the Antakarana on the cosmic physical plane, cosmic physical etheric, leads to Saturn, that the Antakarana continuing, and about which we know nothing, really, on the cosmic astral plane, leads to Neptune, or something that Neptune suggests. Is it 406? I'm trying to think. And the Antakarana on the cosmic mental plane leads toward Uranus, or something Uranus suggests. Now, I'm going to try to find something. You know how it goes when you try to find something here. And I'm going to try, somehow it comes after years. I guess the page was right. He's dealing with permanent atoms. And this is what he says here. Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn will therefore have absorbed the essence of manifestation, and in connection with the solar logos, this is the point, right, and Veronica, and in connection with the solar logos correspond to the three permanent atoms in the causal body of man. Now, you know how that works, right? We go over here and nestled somewhere here, it says at the bottom of the solar, let's see, what at the bottom of the causal body and the egoic lotus, there are three permanent atoms, one of which is a mental unit, so not a complete sevenfold permanent atom. If you combine it, that mental unit with the monastic permanent atom, unit of 4 spirituae, atom of 3, then you get the complete picture. Now, they correspond to the 3 permanent atoms in the causal body of man, probably in the egoic lotus of the solar logos. We say correspond, for the analogy is not in detail. Now here's the point. Uranus and Neptune are reflections of the logoic astral permanent atoms. What might they be on those higher planes, higher than the physical etheric? Saturn is in fact the correspondence to the logoic physical permanent atom. Okay, here we go. This is an occult mystery and must not be separated from its allied truth in the cosmic scheme. I think I've been puzzling over this one for 20 years, but it's page 406, and this is where you can find, perhaps, if you say that the Antikarana is built between permanent atoms, as in a way it kind of seems to be, or at least it begins here between the mental unit and the monastic permanent atom, and then continues to the Buddhic and the Atmic, and then into the monadic permanent atom. I think they all have to have their permanent atoms, even if they're not discussed. We see that the Antikarana does involve contact with permanent atoms or members of the atomic triangle, astral permanent atom and physical etheric permanent atom. So in a way, this whole thing about Neptune, Uranus and Saturn, and the Antikarana is an important consideration. However, DK is hiding a lot of things here. It's difficult. What is the allied truth in the cosmic scheme as far as that goes? What is the cosmic scheme? Is it the entire solar system? What is it? So we have a lot to ponder right here on this page. Okay, that's all I'm going to try to do, lest I really confound things. there's certainly an astral, Neptune and Uranus, and even a mental plane, cosmic mental, Neptune and Uranus. Now, what is their structure compared with the physical etheric Uranus and Neptune? I think we have to discover that to get the answer to this question. Okay. I'd like to be able to say more, but I better leave well enough alone.
Could you make a correction or clarification? Anne Veronica was wondering about the triangle that is under the soul, and she thought you called it the personal triangle.
I called it the atomic triangle. Atomic triangle. It consists of the physical permanent atom, the astral permanent atom, and the mental unit. Now, he seems to be suggesting that cosmically there is such a thing with regard to the egoic lotus of the solar logos. Yeah, he calls them sometimes the three permanent atoms in the causal body, but if you put together the mental unit with 4 spiridae and the monastic permanent atom with 3 spiridae, and it's still within the radiation of the causal body, you will get 7 spiridae for the etheric physical or etheric permanent atom, 7 spiridae for the astral permanent atom, and finally at length, because it has now been joined through the antikarana, you will get 7 spiridae for the monastic permanent atom. After that, it just seems like the number of spiridae for the Buddhic and the atomic permanent atoms is only 3. So why did 4 drop away, and did they really drop away? Anyway, that seems to be the case. The monastic permanent atom of man is 3-fold usually, but when you blend it with the mental unit, you get the full 7. Now, how does that blending occur, and what does it yield? That we have to understand. Now, I also want to tell you that he warned us about too intensive a study of permanent atoms as they have to do with the material side of things, and they could take a man back into materiality, he says, rather than forward into the kind of study that should preoccupy us at this time. So, it's a balance. Okay. Michael, anything else?
I see no other hands raised or questions asked.
Okay. We grow through self-inquiry and the presenting of questions to ourselves. In this process, we call inquiring the way.
And now
I'm just giving, now there is?
And now Anne Veronica's hand is raised.
Okay, and will that mean you would like to talk, Anne Veronica? Because if so, you'd have to unmute yourself. Yes, go ahead, please. At least you're open, your microphone is open. And unless you wrote something additional, doesn't look like it. Atomic triangle, yes. Atomic triangle. So there is the microcosmic atomic triangle associated with our causal body and ego lotus. And there is a more cosmic antikarana associated with our, I suppose, planet. I mean, the causal body of the planet has got to have one as well. But when we're using planets as chakras or centers, then we're talking about the atomic triangle of the solar logos. Now, does the analogy hold? And is there also a split between 4 and 3? We don't know. We might generalize and say, yes, it seems there is a split. But is it only in the case of man that there has to be developed a bridging of the gap, and have the other and higher beings already bridged that gap? Well, look, we'll know when our consciousness changes. Okay. Anything else? So let's, that being the case, go into our meditation. And, it does lead to some pretty cosmic things, this consideration of glamour. And there is cosmic glamour too. And you probably know it, but the home of the true Black Lodge in a cosmic sense is the cosmic astral plane and not the cosmic physical plane. And as a matter of fact, some have made their way onto the cosmic mental plane. So the problem confronting this planet it goes very deep, and maybe confronting the entire solar system, because who is to say whether the solar system itself is free from glamours? We know a lot about our unfortunate little planet that is still suffering from difficulties of personality, but there are other planets too. And there are other non-sacred planets in the sphere or oval of our solar system, and we just don't know enough about it yet, but one day we will. It depends on what specialized line of education we undertake at the Great Decision. Meanwhile, we have plenty to work on. Okay. Now, friends, we're familiar with it. And somewhere here, we should have what we need. It'll just be a second. Glamour project, and this is the meditation. Oh, that sound again. I think we know we have a little bit of a problem here, but I'll find a way through it. Okay, this will do. Okay, friends, our meditation. And it suddenly gets very practical because, you know, there's just a lot of people stuck in their personality and its cravings and its fears of being left behind. And so that's really where we are with so many people, even our leaders, and maybe in some cases, especially our leaders. So let's have some silence. With silence. And as we can see, we're still dealing with this, just as the personality is a very partial part of the whole man, so is the partisan seeing only a small part of that which should be seen. Right now, I'll just focus it on the United States because some critical actions are taking place there, which could turn the United States, it is suggested by those who know the law, into a dictatorship. It happened in Rome. It can happen here. And that will have worldwide repercussions. Excuse me for one moment. So we use our protective formula as we are working in the greatest area of illusion, considering illusion in the generic sense. Trace the light. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point, I never move. And a cross of light forms before each of us and before the group. It's called here the cross of divinity. Then we take the three aspects of light, which must be blended together. The light of matter, lifting this from the etheric physical to the mind, and the light of mind, focused probably on the higher levels of the mental, lower mental plane. And then we reach toward the soul. The soul light, we try to feel it as if it exists. It is a reality, though perhaps not one that we live in as frequently as we should. And bring it down, blending the three types of light, the light of the soul, the light of logic and reason, and the light of vitality. Blend them all on the level of the mind. And from here, the beam will go forth. So to confirm what we've just done, we use this mantra followed by the sacred word. You can do longer ohms than I can, so you can just keep going a little bit. Try to give you time. And we say it. The light is one. And in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. I think we're being directed towards the Buddhic light. Oh. 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 Remember, the light of Scorpio is the light of day, and Scorpio rules the Buddhic plane. Therefore, the light of day rules the Buddhic plane, and it is free from all of the obstacles and hindrances which arise in the personality. Okay. The formula. Radiance are we and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth. The inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. Notice one is inner, one is subtle. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. And let us ponder on that, and while doing so, visualize a great searchlight going forth, something we have created at once a weapon for dissipation and also for discovery. So the beam has gone forth. It's what we use as our instrument, and we strengthen it with will. The spiritual will reinforces the beam. And we say, with power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. And the goal here is the understanding and dissipation of selfish partisanship. So think about it. Selfish partisanship. It's all about prevailing, whether you're right or wrong. My country, right or wrong. My ideal, right or wrong. My party, right or wrong. As we say, for such folks, God, mother, and apple pie. There's nothing else to consider. Certainly not the welfare of the whole. So think for a moment about selfish partisanship and the damage it has done. And now we use the words of power, thinking of them first in relation to the prevalent and really nonsensical selfish partisanship. The power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of selfish partisanship. The power of our united light negates the quality of this glamour from affecting humanity. The quality of our united light destroys the life behind this glamour of selfish partisanship. there is insufficient vitality to maintain the resistance of the part against the whole. So let us begin and take 5 minutes in the silence to see the dissipation work going on, weakening this glamour. the power of our united light, clearing the way for a holistic point of view, a synthetic point of view, a complete understanding rather than a fanatical grasping at a few principles which leave out many principles of great value. So let's each of us in our own life try to see the larger picture, set an example, take in the principles which some other group may be promoting. Maybe there's value there that we have overlooked. Let us aim towards a holistic point of view rather than a glamorous, partisan, selfish point of view. So now we withdraw our beam from off the astral plane. The lights return, the light of the soul, the light of reason, the light of vitality. They return. And we are ready consistently to work in this way for the obscurations which prevent true sight for humanity and individually true sight for ourselves. As we must continue to work on the veils which are individually applicable to ourselves, on the assumption that something of value has been done to clear the way for a greater sun of truth and wholeness to take the place of fanatical partiality. We sound the Om 3 times. Om. Friends, try to stay alert today. There is an important vote which will make a difference between a cover-up unbefitting the Senate of the United States and a fair trial of an unfit president. So do your best to be with it. I know a lot of you are from other countries, but it is so that if developments of this type occur in America, they will spread as they have been doing to Brazil, to Hungary, to various locales. Tonight, Cosmic Fire, 8 o'clock, I think, GMT. And some of you will be with us, and we welcome you. And inside the chat box, you have the Cosmic Fire link. It'll be a webinar like this. Hopefully by that time I'll be able to talk. Thank you for your presence. Love and many blessings to you from the whole team, Tuya, Olivia, and myself, and Michael and BL and Joe, and others who help along the way. I'll convert this and it will be available as soon as possible. Let us dispel or dissipate this curse of selfish partisanship, which prevents us from seeing the truth of wholeness. Bye-bye.